Hey there, guys. Music fan here. How are you guys doing? This is just gonna be kind of like off the cuff, just kind of like discussionary video. It's not gonna be structured or anything. I'm just gonna say a couple of quick, fast thoughts that I have for the recently released new studio album from Linkin Park called One More Light. Was released last Friday, I think it was. And ever since the release of this record, the reviews have been just all over the place. There have been staunch defenders of the band and this album, and at the same time there have been staunch detractors and like detractors of this album and then eventually the band. But then what's kind of very new for me is that I see that there are like two more groups in this camp, which I have not seen before in a Linkin Park album cycle. You have your third group. Well, the first group is you have the very, like your hardcore Linkin Park fans, like that love the band and love whatever they put out and give anything that they put out a shot and just love it, and they love the band themselves. Two, you have a group of people that are very staunch Hybrid Theory, Meteora like fans. Like, I mean, it's either these two albums or nothing else. But then now you have a third group that is kind of like has a more of a middle of the road view towards the album. What I mean by that is that the album is just such a departure from everything else that they have done before, especially the last Linkin Park record, The Hunting Party, which was a more aggressive rock record, into this style, and they're just so jarred by the change that they can't decide. It's not that they can't decide, but they have a difficult time deciding if this is a great album from them or if this album should be eviscerated in the trash bin of fire. So there's that camp there that are kind of on the fence. But then you have a fourth camp, and the fourth camp are a little bit like the second camp, like the Hybrid Theory Meteora camp. But they're a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more open to change and open to different genres. Except the only condition for them, for the band, is that they don't abandon the rock side of their style. I mean, again, you're talking to somebody who grew up during the Hybrid Theory era. Like, I mean, I knew Linkin Park from Hybrid Theory and all the hit singles, One Step Closer, In the End, the rest, and Meteora as well, and Meteora as well, and this group is just has this group's overall sentiment in the Linkin Park fan base is just like is more or less kind of saying to Linkin Park that we want you to evolve, we want you to experiment with different styles, we want you to make your most poppiest record to date. It's just that the only condition that we have is that you don't abandon the rock side of your style. I mean, again, like even going as far back as the Hybrid Theory, that album was a mix of different stuff. There was an element of hip-hop in it, an element of electronica on it. There was an element of metal, but the main difference, and an element of pop, just a little bit of pop. I'm not talking about clean pop. I'm talking about the radio structure of verse, chorus, middle, bridge, chorus, verse, outro thing. That is there. But the difference with Hybrid Theory is that the rock was the anchor, the prominent anchor in that. And while everything else around that was kind of, it's like an ice cream cone. Like you have an ice cream cone, and it's chocolate and strawberry and vanilla, but you have like bits and sprinkles that are put on top of it to make it taste much interesting and more delicious and good. That's the kind of metaphor that I think that this fourth group, I don't know what even to describe them, but it's the group that wants Linkin Park to evolve. They want them to change, but they want them to keep their core sound element intact, which for the most part, when Hybrid Theory came out, was embedded in metal, in rock, in nu metal, and in the rock and roll sound, that kind of like nu metal era, which was kind of like the anchor that kind of honed all these other sounds that were around it. I think I notice I'm babbling on a lot more and not talking about the record, but that's what I kind of think that the fourth group, you have the first group, which are diehard Linkin Park fans, and they will love anything that they put out a shot. And I kind of see myself a little bit in that group also. So you have the second group, who are like, they hate everything post Meteora. Everything post Meteora is a fallacy, it's a travesty, and they should all be destroyed and shot. That's the wrong analogy, but at least destroyed with a hammer, the albums post Meteora. You have the third group, who are just kind of on the fence. Like, the change is just so jarring that it's difficult to decipher for them of like, what does this album entail? Is this their best album? Is it their worst album? I can't decide. And then you have the fourth group, who, they want Linkin Park to change, but they want them to keep their core elements of what made them popular in the first place, which was Chester screaming, Mike Shinoda's rapping, Brad Delson's guitar, Joseph Hahn's, his turntable scratches, bass playing, and the drums. They're looking for an equilibrium, while every other genre is placed on top of that, and they keep experimenting, but they keep those core sounds in place. Yeah. I think when I look back on past videos that I've made of this band and throughout in this channel, I kind of came out a little bit more like the first group, the Love It or Leave It crowd. And I still, in some ways, hold on to that. But as I've gotten older and the more time has gone on and the more just the dramatic shifts in styles that every other Linkin Park record has gone on for the last couple of years, I have slowly but surely kind of veering in between group 1 and group 4 for me, because over the years I've been having more of an epiphany of what the fourth group, in this case, in this video, really means, of what they have been trying to say all this time, is just that, just experimenting but keeping your core elements intact. And I would be remiss to kind of say that I've been slowly veering towards the fourth group, even though I'm a little bit more open-minded and I would really like anything that Linkin Park puts out a shot, but at the same time, I also realize that this album is probably like the most polarizing Linkin Park record since 2000 Suns. So yeah, I kind of find myself in between those two groups, group 1 and group 4, in some odd way. Because this record, as I've said before, is such a departure. I mean, it's the kind of record that would have been better suited in the year 2013-14 than it is the year 2017. It's kind of interesting in how the different styles in Linkin Park's albums seem to land in the wrong time frame. like the Anthony Fantano, The Needle Drop, made a video recently, and he mentioned that that had this album One More Light come out in 2013, along with, that was the era of with Katy Perry and Taylor Swift and the Chainsmokers and the Avicii, you know, that kind of like soft balladry, life-affirming style of like the tear thing, and a very hip-hop pop dominant. This album would have done fine. This album would have garnered Linkin Park a very credible fan base, the pop fan base. And I mean, still would have pissed off a lot of the rock fans, but I mean, that record would have been a lot more suited in that time. And had the Hunting Party come out in this era, in the era of what state is the world in right now, then the Hunting Party would have had a much better case. I mean, it still is an amazing record, and I still love that album, The Hunting Party, to death. But I do kind of see that point, that this record, these two records came out in reverse, and they should come out in reverse. Because One More Light is such a departure, a jarring departure from what, especially an album like The Hunting Party, was. Apparently, from what Chester and Mike and the band has been making in interviews, they mentioned that the songwriting process for this record was in reverse, whereas before it used to be writing a set of lyrics and then fitting the lyrics into the feeling of the songs. No, I made a mistake. It's the other way around. Instead of like in the before, it used to be that they would create the music, and then they would try to pen a set of lyrics that fit the feeling of the music. This time around for this record, the reverse was tried. The reverse happened. Like they wrote the lyrics, and then they tried to find the music, the sort of music that conformed with the lyrics. It's kind of a reverse thing. And that's a really interesting concept and a really interesting idea. But right off the gate, when I first heard Heavy, I thought, like, immediately right off the cuff, I thought like, oh my gosh, you know, there's going to be such a furor over this song, and there was. And now with the release of this album, that's made like times 100. Because remember, in 1,000 Suns, the same thing happened, except this was kind of like a dividing line in the middle of the fan base. Now with the release of this record, that has now splintered into these 4 other groups, plus other people. Really a phenomenon that I haven't seen before, because this record is their most poppiest to date. It's an album that is more influenced by R&B and electronica and pop music more than it is with rock and roll, and that is very evident. I mean, songs like Nobody Can Save Me, songs like Invisible, which I happen to like, by the way, Heavy especially, the title track One More Light, and Sharp Edges, you know, sounding like an Avicii song. You know, it's entirely different. It's so different and very unrecognizable about what people knew of Linkin Park. You know, so in terms of this album, of my view towards this album, if you compare to the 4 groups that I described earlier in the video, I find myself veering towards group number 3, which they are more or less people who are very more or less on the fence with this record. Because I think this record, when you remove this record from the context of their discography, it's really not the best Linkin Park album ever in terms of its appeal and in terms of like its translation to rock and roll fans. Absolutely not. I mean, a majority of rock fans just feel backstabbed and betrayed by the band at this point. But at the same time, I also kind of see the point of where they were going for this record. I know that this record the lyrical writing was inspired by personal accounts, personal stories concerning the members' lives at this point. And of how that influenced the record. So it's more personal things that influenced this record than in the past. So yeah, like I would put this along with the song Heavy, the entire record. I mean, there are some moments on here that are good. Like, I mean, I love the Nobody Can Save Me, the intro track. I like Invisible. I've been playing that song a lot since I first got the record. Heavy, I'm kind of on the fence over with that song. Sharp Edges, the last track, I think is kind of nice. Although the part where it says, "What don't kill you make you stronger," is kind of cringy. Like, that has been a phrase used to death, and I first thought of the Kelly Clarkson song when I first heard the lyrics, so I kind of thought like, ugh. You know, this record, I feel, is kind of middle of the road for me. On the one hand, I can appreciate the band members' philosophy of going into this record. I can appreciate the recording mindset that went into this album, like the unorthodox way of writing music, which is conforming music to a set of lyrics, which is an interesting strategy. I can commend that for that. But at the same time, too, just the way that this album comes out is just very jarringly different. I also mentioned this for Heavy, too, but I want to bring it here. The only way that this record will matter to you is a certain given moment. Like, if you're bummed out or if you're facing a very personal situation, I mean, not all of just primal, angry rock music is going to help you with that. Or it's going to come out, it's going to translate differently to somebody in a different situation than it will somebody else. I mean, I mentioned in Heavy also that song will matter to you in a certain moment, in a certain context, in a certain situation. Like, if you're facing a breakup, then maybe a song like maybe Invisible will speak to you, or Nobody Can Save Me will speak to you in some odd way. You know, like, I mean, it's all relative to what a certain situation in your life is. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence over this record. If I would give it a rating, I would give it like a 3, like really halfway, middle of the road kind of thing. I mean, a lot of hardcore rock fans have been yelling, you know, this is the death knell of Linkin Park. You can hold that, that's your opinion, defend it, which is your right. But for me, I don't think so. This is not going to be the death knell of the band. I don't think the band is going to stop after this, because I have, what's the word I'm using for? I have faith that the band will come out with something awesome again, because they came out with 1,000 Suns, they came out with The Hunting Party, and I always think that a comeback is really ripe for a band like Linkin Park. I mean, take for example Green Day. Green Day, when they started to depart from the sound of Dookie and went into more experimental territory, you know, you had fans kind of like in a similar kind of way, kind of like going back and forth, left and right. And until the release of Warning, then that's when all heck exploded, you know. And then it wasn't until the release of American Idiot that, even though there was still that subsection which says this is not a punk rock album, a lot more people were enthusiastic about that album, and that album made Green Day just explode all over the place. And also, this was during the context of the Iraq War, the Bush era at this point. So I think in this era where we live right now, I think Linkin Park has the chance. They have the potential of making a fantastic record, an American Idiot-like record, at least in terms of appeal and mass explosion throughout the mainstream, that they can do. I genuinely believe that. So no, I don't think One More Light is the death knell of the band. I think they'll continue to keep moving forward with whatever suits their creative desire at this point in time. And I do think that they will come out with another record in the future that will be a hit with everyone across the board. Yeah, overall, that's what I kind of think. Sorry, this is a long video, but I had a lot to say, and this was supposed to be quick, but I went on a tangent. Leave your comments. Comment sections down below. Tell me, what do you think of what I said, or of whatever it is, and think, like, what do you think of One More Light? Do you think this is the death knell of the band? Do you think, oh no, they have another chance at redeeming themselves, or maybe they have nothing to prove to anybody because they've more than earned the right? Leave your comments, your thoughts down below. Sorry this video was a little long. I'll see you guys next time. Linkin Park, One More Light. See you guys later.